there's been a heavy emphasis on obedience and living out what you claim to believe. Last time we looked at the highest authority, which we know to be Jesus the Christ or God himself. And we looked at how important it is to submit ourselves to him in order that we may live and function properly in our everyday lives. Today, we're going to look at the dangers of knowledge, and you may be saying, well, how can knowledge be dangerous? You'll see when we get towards the end and as I bring us along as we walk through these 4 verses of James. Verse 13, and we're only going to read the beginning of it. It says, "Come now, you who say." Come now. Come now. James, he seeks to gain the attention of his hearers here. This is important because the discussion is about to get to something that's serious. Have you ever been talking with somebody and you know that you're about to shift modes, you're about to get ready to go into something that's really serious? Think of those in here that have children, or you have nieces or nephews or little cousins that you look after and they see you as a person of authority. Come now means I need your full, undivided attention. It's equivalent to making sure that the person is looking at you in your eyes. If you remember a few weeks ago, I talked about when you're talking to your child and they're looking off and doing something else, and you grab their face and you say, hey, now, listen to me. It's equivalent to that. It's equivalent to making sure that they understand that the next few things that you're about to say is serious and they need to take heed to it. And that's what James is doing here. Come now, right? We talked about the highest authority and the speech of us speaking in a negative way towards other believers and all of these different things and the dangers that come with that. But we have to understand that moving forward, James is like, I need all of your attention. It's meant to excite attention. That's what the commentary on critical and explanatory of the whole Bible has to say about this. Excite attention into the one that's hearing you speak. But what is this serious discussion ahead? J.A. Morter, he says this in his commentary on James. He said, but there is also the sin of presumptionness, which comes from a wrong understanding of ourselves in relationship to our own lives and our ambitions. In other words, you can say it like this. You want to think of what the presumption is and why that's dangerous on our part. You can say it this way. We presume to have control over our lives and our future. We presume to have more control over our lives and our future than we actually do have. That's important because we sit around and we act like we're in control, like we are in charge, like God could not snap his fingers and bring us home on tomorrow, like God could not snap his fingers and bring us home on the way to going to our next destinations. We think that we have all of this control, and so we presume that we are in total control of the future. What's going to happen tomorrow? I'm going to do this. I'm going to plan to do this. And we'll talk in a minute that all planning is not bad, and we'll look at what he means here. But James is drawing our attention because he recognizes the deficit in our awareness. I want you to think about that. In our awareness, the ability to be aware of what's going on around us in regards to not only everyday life with other people, but in our lives as believers in connection to God. Everything we do, that's the wisdom that we've been seeing so far. Everything we do has to do with him first, his plan. How can I join in with what it is that you are doing. But so let's look real quick at this deficit of awareness. It's in that second part of verse 13, and it's in verse 14 as well. So let's read it all. Come now, you who say today or tomorrow we will go into such and such a town and spend a year there and trade and make a profit. Yet you do not know what tomorrow will bring. What is your life? For you are a mist that appears for a little time and then vanishes. See, there's a presumption that leads to false planning in our lives. That leads to false planning. First, and I made mention of this a while ago, there's nothing wrong with planning, whether you're talking about planning a trip or planning for your future, to further your business or anything that you may have going on. Just planning in and of itself is not wrong. The issue is the heart of the individual, their posture in planning things without any regard for God at all. And that's important. Let me tell you what I mean. You look at sitting down, taking an honest look at what it is that the goals and everything that you have for your life. Sitting down and saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to make this happen. It's all your own power. It's all your own ability. And we don't once think or consider if this is actually what God wants me to do. He's not in the equation in my planning. Does God have something more important for me to do right now? Or should I just go on and act like I understand better than he does? And like I'm in total control of what's going to happen. Here's the thing. When you look at following Jesus, you actually come to realize that you're not in control and you really don't know what tomorrow will bring. You don't know what's around the corner, but he does. We're following him. He knows what's going on. We don't. We don't know if it's going to be an uphill battle for the next 6 months or so, but we plan things without any regard to him, and that's when it becomes sinful. That's when it becomes prideful. Craig Blumberg says this: they are people who plan their lives, their futures, without thought of God and his plans or his sovereignty. We act like he's not sovereign. That is, he's not in total control. Even when there's messed up stuff, injustice, wickedness, all of this stuff is going on around us, he still is in control. Blumberg goes on to say this. He says that wealth allows people an independence from God that can be dangerous for their spiritual state. And James wishes to convict people about this arrogant autonomy. Right? We're big on talking about autonomy in our day, right? Being in control, outside of constraints in any kind of way. And what that does is it leads to lawlessness, because anytime you do something that's independent of God and you think you got it all under control by yourself, it leads to lawlessness. The second thing here is planning as if we are in total control is foolishness, right? How many of y'all have just read through the book of Proverbs over and over and over? I mean, like in your walk, if there's not one book, Proverbs is going to be the one that you just keep reading over and over and over. But it shows us the fool, and it shows us the wise person. The wise person's, their decision making and all of that is anchored and rooted in God and what he has for us. The foolish person says that there is no God, or that I don't really care about this God. I can handle all this stuff myself. See, here's the thing. Faith Life Study Bible says this. He accuses them, right, speaking of James, of acting as though they alone determine the course of their lives apart from God. That's what he's saying to them. Look, you really believe that you got all of this stuff under control and you're succeeding, you're sustaining yourself, you're doing all of this stuff apart from God, and you're going to make sure the outcome is reached. And James is saying, you got to be kidding me. Proverbs 27:1 says, do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what a day may bring. This is the Old Testament. Jesus brings that right back in our face. Luke 12:16-20 says, he tells the story about the rich man, right? A rich man had a fertile farm that produced fine crops. He said to himself, what should I do? I don't have room for all my crops. Then he said, I know. I'll tear down my barns and build bigger ones. Yeah, everybody in here knows this story. You read through the Gospels. He doesn't know what to do. He has way too much. And he's not considering God and what God would want done. Then I'll have room enough to store all of my wheat and other goods. And I'll sit back and say to myself, just listen to that. I'll sit back and say to myself, my friend, you have enough stored away for years to come. Now take it easy, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said to him, you fool, you will die this very night. Then who will get everything you have worked for? You know, just sit back, take it easy. If I build some more barns, I could just keep just stacking away. And see, we read stuff like that, and we're told in our communities, in our society today, the highest virtue is to just keep getting and keep getting. And we don't understand that thirst and hunger for greed and wealth and all that is never satisfied. Never satisfied. Not even considering. That's why when Jesus is talking to the other parable of the rich man, he said, sell everything you got and follow me. Give all the proceeds to the poor. And when you sell that, give it all away and follow me. It said that man walked away with his head down because he had many possessions. In our foolishness, I want y'all to hear me. We become overconfident, and it leads to false understandings. False understandings about what? Ourselves, the world we live in, and just reality in general. But let's look a little deeper at this false understanding. When we plan falsely, we are overconfident in our ability to carry things out, to make it happen. You can say it that way. I got this. You ever talk to somebody that say, oh, I got this. You ain't got to worry about nothing. I'm going to make it happen. And there's only so many things that we actually can make it happen. J.A. Mortar again says this. He says, speaking about this text here, he says, it first touches life, right? James says today, tomorrow, a year from now. In verse 13, it is the presumption that we continue alive at will. So at will, I make it happen. And I can continue to make it happen as long as I will it to happen. He says, secondly, it touches choice. So at first it touches life. Now it's touching choice. He says, today or tomorrow we will go spend a year, trade. He says, it is the presumption that we are masters of our own life, so that we need to do no more than decide, and lo, behold, it will happen just like that. Here's the third thing. It touches ability. In trade and gain, of course, we shall succeed if we won't. We can do it. Think about all three of those presumptions. Let me say them again. It touches on life. We're in control. The presumption that I can make things happen at will. The second thing, it touches on choice. So life choice. Today or tomorrow we will go, we will spend, we will trade, we'll do all this. The presumption is that we're the masters of our own life. But who is master? Jesus. He owns us. I know we don't want to hear that. That's a bad word in our culture today. You say master. But the third thing it says that it touches ability. We think that we have the ability to just do whatever we want. Come on, man. It doesn't take us long at all to realize you can go ahead and get what you need. It doesn't take us long at all to realize if you just practice, it is not going to take you long to realize that you are not in control like you think you are. You can just test your own life. You ain't got to look at nobody else's life. Just test your own life and see, I'm really not in control. Once something don't go the way you want it to go, then you're like, okay, yep, let me take heed to them scriptures. J.A. Mortar goes on to say this. When James exposes the blemish of presumption, I like that, the blemish of presumption he exposes something which is unrecognized, which is the unrecognized claim of our hearts. We speak to ourselves as if life were our own right, as if choice were the only deciding factor, as if we had in ourselves all that was needed to make a success of things, as if getting on, making money, doing well were life's sole objective. Just think about that. I got it. If making money and just getting more stuff is life's only goal. And when we do that, why do you think the scriptures tells us that money is what? The root. If you make your only aim, and here y'all go live. I'm walking up, look, I'm going to say this. If you and I, because I'm in the equation too, if we make it our sole aim to get money, that's all it's about, we are in error and we are missing the mark.
Because people always talk about getting to the bag, but it's like, where you going to get to God? Like, where's God at in the bag?
Yeah, right. So if y'all couldn't hear that, right, those that's going to be on YouTube and those that are here on Facebook Live, people are always talking about getting to the bag, but when we going to get to God? My. We are too confident at times, and that reveals our lack of wisdom. See, we're so confident in our own ability, our own selves. Just look at the lives of people that are just too confident in themselves. There's nothing wrong with being confident. Oh, yeah, I've been working hard. I've been studying. I've been training, and I've been doing all this stuff. I'm going to do the best I can with what I've been working with, right? And God going to handle the rest. That's different than, I got this. I ain't going to worry about nothing. You don't never hear God nothing until it's going your way. You ever notice that? When things are going someone's way, ooh, God is good. He's blessing me. But when it don't work out, And it's our lack of wisdom that leads to this false understanding. So let's keep moving. Blumberg states this. He said, James point out the folly of succumbing to the temptation to make plans without God. There's nothing wrong with planning. Planning in and of itself, nothing wrong with it. But making plans without God as one of his children, we're not talking about unbelievers. Unbelievers are supposed to make plans without God. Why would we expect somebody that doesn't know God or that's not living for God to make plans with God? We're talking about those that know him, that make plans without him. Isaiah 2:22 says, stop trusting in mere humans who have but a breath in their nostrils, while hold them in esteem. Psalms 39:5 says, you have made my days a mere handbreadth. The span of my years is as nothing before you. Everyone is but a breath, even those who seem secure. Those that you look at and like, man, they're straight. Nothing but a breath. Not going to last long, temporary. If the way you understand the world and how you operate in the world is based solely on you and your ability or your power to make things happen, again, you and I are missing the mark. Let's close with a divine apprehension. It's in verses 15 through 17. It says, instead, You ought to say, if the Lord wills, we will live and do this or that. As it is, you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil. So whoever knows the right thing to do and fails to do it, for him it is sin. That's where we're going to get to the dangers of knowledge. To know to do the right thing and omit that and choose to do something else. Ooh-wee. But James throws out a trusting suggestion. He says, instead, you ought to say, if God wills. And I'm not talking about a false humility, if God wills, then I'll do that. You ever talk to somebody like that you can tell, you say all the stuff like you got it all under control, then you just throw that in because you're around some other people, you want to sound spiritual? If God wills, though, if he wills it. We're not talking about a false humility, but really ordering our lives in a posture that says, I don't need to make this decision until I consult the one who's in control of making things happen. Acts 18:21 says this, but as he left, he promised, and this is Paul talking to them in Ephesus. He said, I will come back if it is God's will. He wasn't talking to the ones in Ephesus. This is before he leaves to go to Ephesus. I will come back if it is God's will. Then he set sail from there. I'm going to come back. I plan on doing it. I plan on doing these things. I plan on making this happen, but God may have something else in mind. See, there's nothing wrong with saying certain things. So let me tell you this. There's nothing wrong with saying certain things because this let me tell you why. Saying certain things and having certain desires and wants, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you are somebody that prays on a regular basis and you've been walking with the Lord long enough, you know that tomorrow when you start praying, God may give you some different type of instructions to do something different. And that might mean putting that on the back burner that's really burning in your heart at that moment. And we have to be willing, and that's where the wisdom is. We have to be willing to put our wants to the side for what he wants done in that moment. Blumberg notes this. He said, this verse again reveals James's position that our speech discloses the attitudes of our hearts. More important than the mere verbalization of words is an attitude of humility before God that becomes the fixed position of our hearts in all of our planning. We return it to speech vices, the twistedness in our speech. It's a boasting that's arrogant in our own ability. Our own ability. Verbally boasting like God can't go against us in our pride. What I mean by that, we are boasting like I can make this happen, and God shows you in front of everybody that you are not in control. J.A. Mortar says this, James is not trying to banish planning from our lives, but only the sort of self-sufficient, self-important planning that keeps God for Sunday, listen to this, but looks on Monday to Saturday as mine. Think about that. Sunday, I'm sorry. I just think about conversations that I've had with people. Think about conversations I've had with people. Today is the Lord's Day. This is Lord's Day. Sound real spiritual. Today is the Lord's Day. Monday through Saturday, everything I want to do is fair game. Like Sunday to Sunday is not the Lord's. Like it's not the Lord's. Like I don't understand that. But again, right? Let me read verse 16 and 17 again real quick, because he talks about this boasting and he's revisiting this because James talks about this earlier in his book. He says, as it is, you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil. Right? And so whoever knows to do the right thing and don't do it, to that person is sin. Right? True boasting is boasting in Jesus and not in and of ourselves. It's true boasting. Now, it's not to say that you can't every once in a while pat yourself on the back. Oh man, I'm proud of myself, man. I've been doing real good. I've been on my studying. I've been on my discipline, on my fasting. I've been on this, but we can't act like in that process, God's grace has not been upholding us.
That's right.
Reason why I can pat myself on the back is because of the grace of God. I didn't pat myself on the back because I'm just so great and mighty and come on. In the commentary on critical explanatory of the entire Bible, it says this: ye boast in arrogant presumptions, namely vain, confident fantasies that the future is certain to you. Blumberg says this, that these business people are bragging about their ability to plan their own lives independently of any divine guidance. Again, independent. There's no need for God. We gotta constantly warn ourselves about this. Plan. Look at pursuing some things. But also pray and ask God, is this where you want me right now? Or should I put this off to the side? 1 Corinthians 5:6 says, your boasting is not good. Don't you know that a little yeast leavens the whole batch of dough? Start boasting in the wrong type of way and find out what happens to the rest of your heart. So in this case, the boasting is sinful because God has been removed from the equation and the heart is saturated in pride in oneself. God, there you go. I got this. I'm not going to need your help any step of the way. See, it's not that you can't step out in your own strength. It's not saying that. But it's saying that every step of the way, I got it, even to its conclusion. I'm not going to need you any step of the way. And that is a lie from the pits of what? Hell. How can knowledge be sin? Preacher, you tripping. I don't know, Jay be tripping sometimes. How can knowledge invite sin in our lives? I'm going to show you something. When we fail to apprehend the wisdom God has laid out before us, we move into the territory that is contrary to God and his ways. God lays out wisdom before us. It tells us in Proverbs that wisdom is calling out from the door. Hey, come this way. Come eat at my table. I'm going to show you how you ought to interact. Beware of all of that stuff over there that look real good, that's enticing you. Be aware of that. When we fail to apprehend that and actually come and sit at God's table and dine with him, then we are doing things that are contrary and all that stuff that look real good. We over there saying, yeah, I shouldn't be in here, but I'll come in for just a little bit. And then be crying, Lord, save me, deliver me from this. Luke 12:47 says, the servant who knows the master's will and does not get ready or does not do what the master wants will be beaten with many blows. John 9:41 says, Jesus said, if you were blind, you would not be guilty of sin. But now that you claim you can see, your guilt remains. I mean, how many scriptures do I need to read? You know what you need to do, but you don't do it and think that there is no consequences. That's the crazier part about Christianity in the United States. We talk about all the stuff that we supposed to be doing and that we should be doing, and then we don't do it, and then we act like there are no consequences. And we're closing. Blumberg says this. So in this context, James has urged his audience to take God's will into account in all of their planning for life. So to fail to stand in humility before God's sovereign will at all times is to fail to do a good thing that they now understand to do. Failure to take into account God's sovereignty in all areas of our lives. It's the failure to do the good thing that we understand we ought to be doing. The sin of omission has clear consequences for our lives, and we would do well to make sure that pride does not lead us down that path that God is telling us to stay away from. The dangers of knowledge. And we're going to close right there. The dangers of knowledge. Understanding, I should be doing this. But saying, guess what? I'm going to do what I want to do. And as always, I'm going to leave my blessing. Grace, mercy, and peace be with you.